Hey everyone, Armor Gaming here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Today I'm going to be analyzing Osur the Brave. Osur is one of the bravest, most loyal monsters you'll ever meet. He is an experienced soldier with hundreds of battles behind him, but that hasn't made him a cold killer. He's always up for a long cozy hug. So Osur is the newest VIP monster. He is nature element, and here we have him from childhood to his teenage years to adulthood. Now, just looking at this monster's design, specifically his adult form, look at that. He has he's missing an eye, or he has a battle damaged eye. He's carrying a weapon. His description even says he's an experienced soldier. You would think he's an attacker, and that actually doesn't appear to really be the case. He's more of a tank, but I guess tanks could always be attackers. They're kind of hybrids. So let's get straight into his stats. For his power, he has 3,234, and that isn't one of the highest powers in the game. That's actually more around the middle. It's actually tied with Sarah. So it's a decent power. It's not good, it's not bad. His life, however, comes in at 32,572, and that is actually the highest life for a nature monster. So that just outclasses General Elsus. And it actually outclasses his life by 2,000 points, so it's a really high power. And his speed comes at 3,399. And his speed is 3,399, and similar to his power, that's actually more along the middle for nature monsters. So it's not good, and it's not necessarily bad. And like I mentioned previously, he is nature element, therefore his weakness is fire, and like I said, he is the newest VIP monster, meaning his trait is Bulwark. All status effects have a 50% less accuracy against all monsters of this unique cast. There's not much to say about that trait, it's a really good trait to have. Moving on to his default and special skills, we have Tetsubo Hit and Rock Batted. And none of these skills are worth really talking about, you're going to replace them early on. But his special skill, Tetsubo Shockwave, deals massive nature damage to all enemies, may stun all targets. So it's an AoE skill, AoE stun skill, 75 damage like most special skills. So it's a pretty good skill, especially considering no nature monsters except for Sarah are immune to stun. Moving on to skills group 1, we have Medicinal Tetsubo, 35 damage, 28 stamina, no cooldown, deals moderate special damage, gains precision. It's an okay skill, but like I always say in my other videos, skills group 1, you most likely will never keep a skill from here. There are very few monsters that you actually keep a skill. So moving on to Rain Batted, it's an AoE, 25 damage, 31 stamina, 2 turn cooldown, you won't be needing this skill. And we have Huge Throw, nature element, 35 damage, 26 stamina, 0 turn cooldown, 50% chance to stun. You also most likely won't be needing this skill because the skills group 2 and 3 are going to have way better skills. So that moves us on to skills group 2 with Remedial Tetsubo. Deals heavy special damage, gains regeneration, it's 50 damage, 28 stamina, 2 turn cooldown, and I actually love these skills. I love skills that give you life heal and they give you a shield and they give you regeneration. Anything that you can inflict damage while giving your monster some sort of positive benefit is a really good skill in my opinion. Regeneration on a super tanky monster is super good. This is definitely a skill you are going to want to run. And we also have a skill called Dazing Bat. It's an AoE, 35 damage, 37 stamina, 3 turn cooldown, and what it does is it gives all the enemy monsters daze. Now daze is actually a pretty good negative effect to inflict on enemy monsters. So they lose 25% of their power, and at the same time they lose 25% accuracy. So the chance of them hitting you is a lot less than before. And the fact that it's AoE, it really helps out. This is definitely a good skill. Definitely recommend running it. And next we have a skill called Restore Bravery. Target heals by 50%. May give precision to ally. So a 50% heal is really good. In most of my battles, I found that a 50% heal is really all my monster usually ever needs, because at most the enemy gets one hit on me, and then 50% is really all you need. The fact that it gives increased accuracy is just a really good plus. So it's a good skill. However, it really depends if you're going to run the skill depending on the build you want for your monster. If you want to make him supportive, you're probably going to want to run this skill. If you want to make him more of an attacker, you're going to not want to run this skill. So I'll talk about that later on. So moving down to skills group 3, we have Curative Tetsubo. Deals heavy special damage, heals by 30%. So like I mentioned previously, I love when a skill gives you regeneration, some sort of shield, or heals your life. So this skill is just that. 50 damage, 27 stamina, 2 turn cooldown, and you heal by 30%. Really good skill, specifically if you want to make your monster an attacker. Definitely worth running. And we have a skill called Savage Wind. It's basically heals your team by 30%. Now, I'm personally not a fan of these kinds of skills that heal your team by X amount of percent because, again, in my experience, I've rarely found that the enemy team hits all my monsters. They usually target one monster and it's usually the weakest monster. So I personally like to have skills that usually heal one monster a higher amount than all my monsters by 30%. But again, that's just up to me and I don't recommend the skill. But again, it really depends on the kind of build you're building on your monster. And lastly, on skills group 3, we have a really strong attack skill, Massive Throw. 65 damage, 31 stamina, and it only has a 1 turn cooldown. And aside from that, it also dazes, so that's pretty cool. And it is of course nature element, so definitely worth running this skill if you're running an offensive build. So let me just go back up to the stats real quick. I mentioned his power is 3,234, not the highest power, but it puts him in the middle of nature monsters, and his life is pretty darn tanky, 32,572. Again, really tanky, and for this reason, for runes, I recommend run a strength to increase that power. And actually, lots of people probably don't agree with running a life rune, but I think you should run a life rune. And the reason you want to run a life rune, and I always say this with monsters, you want to capitalize on the power they already have. Some people think that there's no need to increase a stat that's already really high. So for example, if a monster had a 4,000 speed, why wouldn't you want to capitalize on it? If a monster has really high life, capitalize on it. A life rune will go a long way. So capitalize on his life. Give him a life rune, give him a strength rune, and give him a speed rune, and you'll have a really good monster. Now arguably, depending on what kind of monsters you're fighting, you probably won't need a speed rune. You could probably get away with a team speed rune, or you can probably get away with no speed rune at all and run 1 life rune and 2 strength runes. And the reason for this is, the only way the enemy goes twice is if they have double your speed. So for a monster to go twice before you can attack once, with Osur the Brave, they'd have to have a speed of 6,800, which isn't that likely. So for example, if a monster has 3 level 10 speed runes, they increase their speed by 105%. Now obviously that's enough to make them faster than most monsters with no speedruns. So for that reason I say if you have a team speedrun, that should be enough to offset the percentage, as long as it's more than 5%, and you'll be good. Your opponent won't get 2 turns in before you get 1 turn. And again, it always goes back to you run a main deny monster that can hopefully deny the enemy deny monster. But I can't really give a generalization for everyone because everyone is in a different point in the game. Some people are facing enemies that only run level 10 speedruns, some people aren't, so it really depends on you. But again, for runes, 1 speed, 1 strength, 1 life, that's really good. You can do 1 strength, 1 life, 1 team speed, or you can do 1 life and 2 strength. It really depends on where you're at the game. But going back to skills, if you want to make him an offensive attacker, I recommend you run the following skills: Remedial Tetsubo, Curative Tetsubo, and those are his 2 attacks that are special element, and they can heal you in some way, shape, or form. And you run Massive Throw, because that's basically his strongest hit. And I would run Dazing Bat, because sometimes it's really beneficial for an attacker to run a move that makes the enemy weaker, that way they can dish out less damage on your team. So Dazing Bat is a really good skill, and if you wanted to, I guess even though it's an attacker, you could potentially run Restore Bravery, but I really don't think you need it, because if it ever was to come down to Osur the Brave being the last monster alive, you would be able to heal your life up to max every single time with the Remedial Tetsubo giving that generation, and Curative Tetsubo healing you by 30%. And that's why you run a life rune, so he can outlive everyone, and that's why you give him 2 strength runes, so even if he's the last one alive, he can dish out massive damage. If you don't run strength runes, you're gonna have a really hard time defeating the enemy. But if you wanted to make him more tanky, and you wanted to make him more of a supportive monster that helps your team out, give him Restore Bravery, give him Savage Wind, give him Dazing Bat. Those are the 3 skills you absolutely need. Dazing Bat, again, it makes the enemy's attacks weaker, and potentially they'll miss. That way your monsters take less of a hit. Restore Bravery, that's to heal any monster that needs a 50% heal. Savage Wind, that's to heal all your monsters for when the enemy dishes those AoEs on you. And then I would run probably Remedial Tetsubo. That's the most helpful one because you'll be regenerating your life by 20% every single turn. And for runes, for this build, you really need 1 life rune, 1 strength rune, 1 speed rune, or 1 team speed rune. On the supportive build, I don't recommend running 2 strength runes since you aren't really running skills that can dish out damage. The 2 strength runes would only work when you're running the offensive build. And that's my analysis on the latest VIP monster, Osur the Brave. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I decided to make this video because I knew I was going to get a lot of questions asking what skills I recommend for this monster and if he's worth it. And I really can't answer that second part. Is this monster worth it? In my opinion, the only person that can decide if a monster is worth it is the person playing the game. And I really mean that. In my opinion, the only person that can decide if anything, and this doesn't apply to monsters, it applies to anything in the world. If anything in the world is worth spending money, that person is you. You're the one with the money. If you have the means to make money and spend money, then that's ultimately up to you. If you want this monster because he looks cool, buy him. If you want him because you like his skills, buy him. If you like him because you predict using him a lot, then go ahead and buy him. If you guys want to know, I think this monster would easily rank in top 5. Yeah, it sucks that he's worth $20 or you have to spend $20. But as far as his stats and his skills, he's kind of like a mini Judgment. Like, this monster honestly reminded me of the Judgment. If you guys want to check my analysis for the Judgment, go ahead and click here. But yeah, when I was analyzing this monster, lots of the skills, they seem really familiar. Judgment has two skills actually, that do 50 damage. One gives him regeneration, one gives him a 30% life heal. He has another skill that's 65 damage. Just like Osur the Brave, the Judgment has an AoE poison, whereas this monster has an AoE daze. You know, they're really similar. So, and it's hard to say if he's a better Judgment because his power is obviously a lot worse than the Judgment. However, his life is a lot more tankier. And let's be honest with ourselves, if we give a monster, any monster, doesn't matter if they're a deny monster or attack monster, if you give a monster 2 level 10 strength runes, it doesn't matter what their base power is, they are most likely going to one hit any monster you need them to one hit. But I'm getting a little off track. At the end of the day, as far as nature monsters go, for attackers only, he's a pretty good monster. If you want to spend 20 bucks, that's completely up to you. I really can't advise on that. And that's it for the analysis, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll see you guys next time.